for NSP Closeout. Today we are joined by Janine Cuneo with ICF, as well as Jim Yearden with HUD, Ryan Flannery with HUD, and Hunter Kurtz with HUD. So today's webinar, you could join VoIP, which is your computer and speakers, or over the phone. So when we get to the Ask a Question session, you can type your questions into the question box on the toolbar on your screen, or you can raise your hand if you're joining on the phone, and you can ask your question over the phone. And in the chat box, I sent you all a link to today's slides, so if you want to follow along or print them out ahead of time, you can do so. They're posted to the OneCBD Resource Exchange. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Janine.
Great, thanks so much, Vinny. We'll be talking today about the closeouts, and specifically with regards to NSP closeouts, how it's working in DRGR. Some quick tips for you, some understanding about some of the most recent releases and how it affects closeouts and you're working in DRGR. And as always, we'll leave a substantial amount of time for you guys for questions and answers. We're happy to go through those and make sure we get to all of your questions and answers, and those we cannot do today, we'll make sure we get to them at a later date. I wanted to just pause for a second. There's been a lot of updates, I'd say, in the past couple of months to DRGR. There's release 7.9 that happened in early March, and then there's actually 7.10 that's happening literally as we speak this week. And so I wanted to pause, and I'll talk a little bit about 7.10 later in the slide show, but I wanted to pause on 7.9 right now, talk about a couple of the highlights, and you're also going to hear about 7.9 throughout the presentation, where we highlight a few more items that are essential to understand for closeouts. Some of the highlights of 7.9 is a change for who has the ability to submit the QPRs and the action plans. There's been some upgrades to MicroStrategy. Again, for folks, they might know MicroStrategy as the reports module. The uploading functions were also enhanced. Remember, over the last couple of releases, there's been this ability for you to do batch uploads, meaning if you have 20 addresses, instead of you having to key those addresses into DRGR, if you follow a prescribed template that's given by HUD and the rules and regulations of how to upload, you'd actually be able to upload those, upload a file, it's technically called a CVS file, into the system, and that will automatically put those addresses in, for example. And so there's been some updates to that and enhancements to that uploading functionality. As well as drawdown users are now able to kind of classify your return funds to be either applicant to line of credit or not. And this gives some freedom for you when you're having to do work with return funds. I'm going to pause for a second, and Vinny, if you can take us actually over to the OneCBD Resource Exchange right now, and we'll be able to actually see. I want to show you guys the fact sheets. Great. This is OneCBD Resource Exchange. I believe a lot of you, if not all of you, are familiar with this site at this point. Specifically, I'm on the DRGR homepage. If you notice, the URL is onecbd.info/DRGR. And so what's essential about knowing about this site is two things for you guys right now. One is there's going to be a graphic refresh going on, or rebranding that's going to be going on. So you're going to see a little bit of a different site. Early next week it's going to be changing. It's important for folks, just don't worry, a lot of the same functionality is there and a lot of the same information will be there. For example, you're not going to see on the scroll bar anymore this resource library. What you're going to be able to see is called Manage a Program. You're going to go in there and you're going to be able to search for DRGR and find DRGR. You're still going to have a DRGR homepage, similar to what we're seeing now. And why I wanted to focus your attention on this homepage, if you scroll down just a little bit, you're going to see that there is a DRGR release, 7.10 information. There's both an overview as well as a new user and profile change request. We'll get to that a little bit later today. But what I wanted to focus you on is this DRGR release 7.9. As you know, there's many fact sheets that go on. These are just a couple pages. They're not long or intensive. It just gives you a little bit of an understanding and a how-to if it needs needs, if you need a little bit more information on each one of these areas. So again, we're not going to go into every one of these items that got released, but I wanted to show you guys where you can get information on each of the kind of major functionality changes that happen in Release 7.9 and be able to look at those and really dig deep there. So again, if you go to the 1CPD.info page and go to DRGR, either today you'd go through the resource library to find this page, or next week when there's a refresh to the to 1CPD Resource Exchange, you'll be able to go through what's called Manage a Program. You'll be able to find this site as well. Minnie, why don't we go back to the slideshow now? We'll keep the presentation going. Great, thank you. So let's just stop and pause for a second and talk about when are you ready to close out, and really wanted to talk about kind of two things first. First, you need to ensure that any project that has even a penny of a line of credit funds, that it has met a national objective. This information was presented again at the latest NSP webinar closeout, and feel free to go back through that webinar, the transcript. I believe it was February 25th on the date if you want to go back. Let me give you a little bit of overview. That's maybe a little bit different than what has been talked about in the past with regards to expenditure deadlines, where HUD used to say that you need to expend an amount equal to your initial grant allocation to meet the expenditure deadline. And that can be made out of line of credit funds and program income. For this, though, HUD is really talking about line of credits, and I really want to focus here on that. So projects that are, anytime you're drawing funds from your line of credit, that project has to meet a national objective, which is typically, for example, someone literally living in the house to close out the grant. This is important because a lot of grantees have a fair amount of program income. So you guys are getting able to reach down to the line of credit, and you may want to consider adjusting your program in a way that would allow you to spend for funds a little bit more rapidly so you get down to those line of credit funds. Then the second thing we're talking about here is you need to meet 25% set-aside requirement. Again, for more details, for a deeper dive, please go back to that closeout webinar if you're wanting about policy or any concerns there about how to do that, what are the real details of that. I just wanted to make sure we pause and you guys are remembering that as kind of how you're ready for a closeout. This also was a great little diagram, in my opinion, that helped people walk through the closeout process. My recommendation is, take a moment and look through that. Some things to understand about this chart is one thing is that steps 1, 3, and 6, you'll notice that HUD will be providing to grantees some technical assistance for those that may need it. And the other thing I want you guys to notice is that basically, 1 is green, meaning that's where you're going to start, and step 8 is red, that's where you end. But blue is something that actually HUD is the one that's doing, and purple is something that you as a grantee are the ones that are doing. So it helps you identify what is your requirements versus what are the requirements of HUD during this closeout process. I wanted to kind of pause also on step number 6. I think for us today, for DRGR, this is a pretty important step. And this is where a grantee has 90 days to submit their final QPR. And that 90 days starts from the date the close certification is executed by HUD. We're going to go into this a little bit further, but keep that in mind, this 90-day. QPRs, those are what should be called complete and accurate. And the basics there, again, we'll talk a little bit more, all numbers add up, and it tells a complete story about your NSP program. And TA will be available. Let me just talk a little bit more about what this final QPR is. My understanding, there might have been a little bit of confusion, and so let's just outline it. There's really kind of 3 ways to submit this final QPR. So the first one is if the QPR that you submitted is before the certification was signed by HUD, and that QPR was what's called complete and accurate, meaning all the information that you have for your NSP program is completely in there and it's accurate, and you have no additional program income, then the data has not changed in any way at all, those kind of major changes haven't, not major, minor too, nothing's changed, no additional PI, then you do not need to submit another QPR. Basically, that QPR you submitted right before the certification, that becomes your de facto final QPR. Again, if no additional program income, no data has changed, basically that QPR was your complete and accurate QPR. A second way is if the closeout certification was signed by HUD and a QPR is due before the 90-day time frame expired, you can submit a regular QPR, and once it's been approved by HUD, the grantee's made any final edits, then you submit the final QPR. Lastly, you submit your final QPR, and it acts as both the final QPR and your regular QPR due for that quarter that you are in. Hunter, any clarifying points there you want to make about that?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. I would say that, you know, again, once you do submit that final QPR, no matter where you are in that sort of that year, you then switch to, after you close out the grant, to that, you know, annual QPR, so there's, or annual report. So that's sort of what we're talking about for the third one, I guess.
Great. And Vinny, are you, it looks like we were a little bit off kilter on our view. Are you able to move the slide deck over a little bit so people can get it centered on their screens?
Sorry, I'm not seeing that issue. Is it appearing that way on your screen?
Yeah, it's basically you cannot read the full closeout process. It starts with an O-S-E-O-U-T. If you're able to move that over, that'd be great.
Okay.
Well, he works on that. I'm going to go ahead and go through the next screen called Preparing Your Final QPR, and I'll talk you guys through what it says here, and hopefully you guys are going to be able to see a lot of it. So start now. I'll say it again, start now. and that maybe for some people doesn't necessarily mean you're literally typing something into your QPR, but what that means, for some of you it does. But what I really want to emphasize here, what that really means is you guys are getting data verified. You are jumping in, recognizing what have you put in there, what data needs to be updated. Updated could include both deletions and additions. What kind of financial data is in there so that you reconcile against your own books. You reconcile against perhaps subcontractors and developers' final payment invoices, etc. So you really have stopped and looked at your data, looked at your records so that you can see and understand all the information, both performance data, meaning beneficiaries, unit counts, etc., as well as financial data, so that you really have a good sense of reconciliation between your own books and what you have on record with DRGR. Third and last is the narrative. It's really essential. As we all know, the performance data, beneficiary data, financial data really does tell your story, but your story is also can be supplemented by that narrative. So what's that final narrative look like to you? What does that QPR want to say? And to me, it's what is it that your story has told you? What really has been the elements that maybe this program has changed the tide on? Or if you did, for example, a multifamily rehab, what did that rehab do for that community, if anything? Do you have any data on that? But more importantly, just what's the story there? And so just want to make sure that you're thinking about the key design elements that you guys chose for your NSP program, and how can you illuminate how that made a difference in your community through your narratives, because only addresses and performance data and financials can tell so much. So it's your opportunity. I like to think of a narrative as your opportunity for that. Vinny, any luck thus far on getting that?
Yeah, I'm seeing it fine, and people are writing in saying that it's perfectly centered on their screen and they can see everything. So is it maybe the size of your window on your computer or something?
Yeah, maybe I'll make some changes on my end. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate people writing in as well. So if we go next, the closeout guidance review. To close out, you need to draw and spend all of your line of credit. expend an amount equal to or greater than your original grant amount. Important here, complete and meet a national objective for any project with every penny of your line of credit. I'm going to say that one again. I think that's really important. You've got to meet that national objective for any project with every penny of line of credit. Any questions you have about a national objective, do not hesitate to call your rep and talk those through. And then, as part of the beginnings that we've talked about a long time ago, that 25% requirement, you got to show an amount equal to the 25% of your original grant made of any combination of PI and line of credit funds that was spent to meet the set aside. And remember, the essential part here is in DRGR, you were able to demonstrate that through the way in which you set up your activities, that 25% set aside. So if by any means, if people are still confused with how to set up that set aside, if you maybe still aren't showing that you met that, or there's any confusions around, I set up an activity here and that actually isn't going to the set aside at this point now, etc., please call your rep, ask a question in, or ask a question here, and we can help you walk through that. So I just want to remind people of some math rules. Again, the goal here is we're walking through these, how do you do this QPR for closeout, is complete and accurate. One way to make sure and ensure that it's accurate is to remember your math rules in DRGR. For some of you that maybe was with me at the beginning, multi-years ago when the NSP program started, we often started with math rules. I think every beginner and intermediate DRGR webinar I did was start with the math rules. So for those of you that have been on these before, I've heard these probably many times, but I'm going to go back to it right now because I think it's essential you remember this to ensure where you're reconciling that this is an essential thing to understand. So both your project and your activity budgets must include program funds and estimated program income. Okay? So you literally put that at the project and at the activity line item where you have a budget. You got to include both your project funds and your estimated program income. And so if you look down, I kind of have your total budget, which is, again, your grant funds plus your estimated PI or revolving loan funds are greater than or equal to the sum of the total project budgets, and that's greater than or equal to the sum of the total activity budgets per project. Again, important math rules you can remember in DRGR. And as we are probably very familiar with all of you out there, I just wanted to reiterate here at the grant level, you have both your grant award amount, which is the line of credit, and then you go ahead and put in your estimated PI or RL funds, revolving loan funds, then the two will add up to your total budget. And I just wanted to point that out, as some of you might say, I've now put so much program income at the project and activity level. What was my line of credit? What is that again? You can go back to your front page, your edit action plan page of your action plan, and it will show your grant award amount, and that is your line of credit. Let's talk a little bit about address data. Pretty essential to have a complete and accurate QPR, your final QPR. You got to make sure this address data is accurate. Address data has been something throughout the life cycle of NSP that's been a little bit difficult for some of those folks to nail down. Either people put address data in really early and later clarification came out to really wait till you meet that national objective, and that's when you put your address data in. So there's a lot of kind of what I'd say junk going in on the address information. We've had some conversations in the past about how to clean that up, including different functionality that HUD has provided via DRGR to hopefully make that easier, for example, batch uploading. So I really want to pause for a second and talk through address data again due to just kind of a lot of that confusion that has happened over the last few years. So since the 7.7 release, remember we're already on 7.10 now in 2014, but since 7.7, you guys have been able to remove duplicative addresses. You also can improve the accuracy of your addresses through some geocoding options, and you're also able to edit and do some other editing to improve the quality of these addresses. And so I think a lot of you at that point in time were really able to kind of stop and evaluate what was going on with the addresses per activity. So some good cleanup going on there. But I do want to recognize for you guys not to just stop because that was part of 7.7. All those functionality still available that you need to kind of pause and look at your addresses again. Excuse me. If you notice here, you can do this maintain addresses. When you're at the edit QPR screen, you're actually able to, without even going into a QPR, you're able to go ahead and hit this maintain addresses and really get a sense of all those addresses that are out there for you. Great. Here's more of that. If you select this maintain address, this is where you can search for and clean up any of the duplicative or incorrect address information. So again, I'm focusing on this because you don't have to go in by QPR. You can actually go into just the QPR module. You don't have to open a QPR actually. Go into the QPR module and you get to this maintain addresses. There's a lot of functionality here to help you out in ensuring that you are able to, quote unquote, have that complete and accurate QPR so that your addresses are complete. It's going to allow you to delete any selected items, add addresses, validate any of the selected, validate meaning that geocode validation. So great idea to go into this maintain addresses. It gives you all of your addresses across all of your QPRs, and you're able to get kind of a great at-a-glance look at your addresses. Just another example of how, if you're wanting to edit any of your addresses, you can go ahead, if you see on the left-hand side of the screenshot, there's little boxes, and there's a couple of them checked. If you check those boxes and then check the edit address link, it's in blue on the bottom, a little thing pops up and says edit address, and you'll notice it right here. You literally can edit the address right into the maintain addresses functionality. It's a great resource for you to do spot checks. Talk a little bit about some of the supporting data that's required of you. This was something that was clarified a lot in the release 7.7, and it's going to be an element you need to make sure and ensure you have to, again, hit that complete and accurate final QPR. And grantees will need to list the start and the end date for all of their NSP properties. This is really to demonstrate your period of affordability requirements are met. Generally, the affordability period begins when the unit is occupied with an eligible tenant. Again, notice we say generally. There are some caveats to that, and that's really the policy end of the period of affordability. Any questions or concerns, happy to take them, but also don't hesitate to dig a little bit into those period of affordability requirements and talk to your rep. Multifamily rentals affordability period begins when the property reaches stabilized occupancy. Again, check out the release 7.7 fact sheet on this one for post-closeout reporting for NSP, and we go pretty in depth with the period of affordability supporting data information. Oops. Just want to show you a little bit of highlights of that. This is when you're maintaining the addresses. So again, remember, when you enter your QPR module, and before you actually open a QPR, you can go to a maintain address link. This is the link we showed you before where you can edit your addresses, you can delete addresses. There's also an item, if you go all the way to the right-hand side of the maintain addresses screen, where it says support information. And this is where you can put information such as your period of affordability. Once you click on support information, this is the elements that are required to insert. So as you notice, the property status, they're wanting to know the affordability start date, the affordability end date, description of the method you use to determine the affordability, the activity type for end use, and another important requirement is the national objective for end use. About a little bit about program income as well. Previously, once a grant status was changed to closed in DRGRs, grantees could not submit any additional QPRs. And that doesn't really work for NSP grantees that have program income. As we know, it's a requirement for HUD to continue to track the use of program income, and required for you guys as grantees to demonstrate that what you're doing with your program income, the affordability periods need to be documented, etc. So as a release 7.7 to meet this this need for the NSP program to continue to report on program income. When grants are closed in HUD, or when grants are closed, HUD can select the grant status as closed with program income active and change that report cycle from quarterly to annually, so that you're no longer doing quarterly QPRs anymore, but you are demonstrating annually what is happening, meaning you are demonstrating that active program income and what you guys are doing with it. What's monetarily happening, what are the financial information, what are the period of performances, meaning affordability periods, as well as your performance data and beneficiary data associated with program income. Again, after the grant is closed with program income active, the system generates a new performance report with a type of what's called closeout. The report period is displayed for each period. So you'll notice now that it's going to be an entire year, again, an annual report, not a quarterly annual report. So you're now able to see that this new type of quarterly report is called a closeout report, and the reporting period is, for this instance, October 1st, 2012 through September 30th, 2013. So I mentioned a little bit before this data uploading templates, and I wanted to pause and stop on this as well. For many of you that maybe didn't do an aggressive cleanup effort when the 7.7 release happened, where it allowed more functionality to maintain your addresses and do some data uploads, you're going to need to do that for your closeout, your final QPR. And saying that even if you did do it then, good to just triple check everything, right? The goal here is to reconcile all data, including addresses, including financials, including national objectives, what have you. All information is really important. Responsible organizations as well, for many of you, might be something to double check on as well. The data uploading templates really allow for you guys to do quick uploads instead of doing a lot of key-ins to DRGR. I know for some folks, especially for you out there, the states or very large communities, that this has been very valuable for you. It's allowed you not to have to be in DRGR all the time doing key-ins. Rather, you're able to do some data manipulation via Excel, modify that Excel so it's now what's called CVS file, and then able to upload. So an example here, especially as it relates to QPRs, is you're going to be able to create vouchers and populate QPRs by just uploading some templates into DRGR. Again, for those of you, that's been pretty essential if you have large vouchers with multiple line items. DRGR actually provides you with standardized templates. Many people have looked at those and did some distribution to your subrecipients or responsible organizations to complete. And again, really a time-saving, especially if you're having to do some massive cleanup work during your closeout process, or if you're a substantially large grantee, usually just even your last vouchers, your last information is pretty helpful to do this with. So there's kind of two types of data uploads now, and wanted to kind of note that. So one is these regular data uploads, and those were released in 7.7. Talk about those in a second. And then there's now something new based on the most recent 7.9 release called a power user data upload, which by far is kind of my favorite language out there, this power user. And the power user is basically those that have grantee administration only rights. And it allows them to do some different data uploads within one file. Again, remember, you gotta, if you're doing some data in Excel, it's got to be saved as a CSV file, and then that's what you upload. A lot of different upload types and fields. I wanted to put the URL here. Literally, this could take us, 20 slides to show you all the different types of uploads that are available, and also which kind of fields in each upload. So I really recommend you go through, grab this URL, look at the fact sheet for 7.9, and you're going to be able to see all the different uploads that are available to you. I want to note here that it is essential that you use the field name types and put the information in there as it relates to those field name types. So If you do not do that, then DRGR basically rejects the entire upload. So you got to ensure you have like to like. And another thing, excuse me, is not just like you got to make sure that the columns of the template must be in the same and correct order. So for example, if you want to switch a column around, because you can do so once you actually download the template, you got to make sure you got to have that back into the correct order, or else literally DRGR kind of rejects it. Some examples I wanted to give you was, you know, if for example you named your activity as NSP1-B AR MF DHH LH25, it literally must be entered as such, or the entire template will not be populated. So it's got to be a like for like match for what your information is in the system. Again, for QPR, there's multiple templates that you can use. Kind of what I'm calling like section templates is the best way. And so there's a QPR address template, there's a QPR beneficiary template, there's a QPR expenditure template. So you'll want to be able to look at the different templates so you're able to use that. Again, I think it's very, very essential for those that are going to be doing some major cleanup work for their final QPR to really double check. If you've never used this template before, it might behoove you to look at these templates and get used to them, because it might really help you in your cleanup effort. I just want to give you guys a little tutorial on how to upload the templates. So when you're in, for example, a create voucher, I'm just going to show you an uploading template for vouchers, for example. You can do so by literally when you have your create voucher screen open on the first page of doing the drawdown for vouchers, there's literally a little link here that says upload voucher. And you're able to do a couple things here. You're both able to actually upload it by selecting the upload type. It would be either if you're doing an obligation change or vouchers. And then you're able to browse, meaning if you look under the please select the file to upload, you're able to find that file that you've created on your in your own internal data system and upload that. If you want to find the template for either the activity obligation or the voucher, you're literally able to click this download template link. And that's where you'd be able to find that template so you can recreate those vouchers. If you're clicking on that download template, you first will be able to see kind of the list of available grants for you. And then you're going to select the grant and use the arrow to move it to the selected list. You're going to want to export it again. I recommend highly you're exporting that as a CSV file, because you're going to ultimately have to upload it as a CSV file. And then you're going to use the exported template to upload additional information. Oops, sorry, let me go back. And that's really where you're going to be able to see, okay, so column A is my grant number, column B is my activity number, column C is my responsible organization. So really make sure that if you're going to need to change, let's say for example, you're going to want to demonstrate a different only a couple of the activities you're actually going to upload vouchers against. That doesn't mean you need to have all information in here in the sense that every single line item is going to have the same, but you can still put zeros down and tell it, and you only are going to put it on the activities in which you actually want to do line items. That's great and fine. Do not go in here, though, and make changes to the grant number or the activity number or the responsible organization. If anything's wrong on those, you're going to want to go back into the system and change it. But if you change it on this voucher, on this uploaded template, it's going to reject your template. So you've got to make sure that the information you get out of the system, if there's something wrong with it, you might need to go back into the system, make some changes. Since the 7.9 release, users can upload data directly to the QPR instead of going through each activity by using multiple QPR templates. And so that was a really great new resource for you guys I wanted to point out. So for example, if you want to do QPR addresses, you can go ahead and go to the Add Edit QPR screen and go to the Edit. And once you open the Edit screen, there's a new little feature that says Upload QPR Data. Once you do that, the screen will pop up. you're going to be able to do a couple different things. One is you can select the upload type, so you can do it by address support info. Remember, that's a lot of your affordability period information, QPR accomplishments, QPR addresses, whatever the upload type you need to do. Once you do that, then you're going to select a file, and then you're going to go and upload that file. If you want to generate and export different MicroStrategy reports to Excel and look at and view these information, you can go ahead and click on the supporting info and click also, if you notice it says click here to view sample upload templates, you're going to be able to look at some of those templates if you need to export some of that information so you can start creating your template information. Again, highly recommend for your complete and accurate final QPR that you might want to pull down some of these templates. It's going to give you a lot of data that you have in the system, as well as looking through and exporting information to MicroStrategy reports, so you really can stop and reconcile that information against what you have internally in your own systems, what you have against, for example, if a subcontractor is someone that has is doing a lot of work on different units. So let's say they send you a final list of the 30 addresses in which they did work on. You look at that list and you double check that you have the most accurate and current information in the system. If you're, again, this power user, which is the grantee admin only access, it's for the release 7.9. To find those and to find how to do those uploads, you go into the admin module, and there again you kind of have three basic steps. One is it's called kind of what's called the batch upload, so you select the upload type and you're able to browse and upload. If you want to get more information about which upload templates those are, again, go back into your 7.9 fact sheets and you'll be able to look at all the different templates available to you and different types of batch uploads available to you for this new power user. Another 7.9 release information that came out that I thought was essential for us to review for your final complete and accurate QPR was around modifying your activity type. So prior to 7.9, DRGR didn't really allow you to change the activity type on your edit activity page. So the main reason for that was in DRGR, the activity type is directly correlated with the different performance measures available. So basically, the different performance measures that you see, for example, number of houses, number of units built, number of units sold, number of units bought, number of jobs created, all those different level of performance measures data appear to you based on the activity type you chose. So HUD basically correlates if it's activity type X, and these are the different performance measures that a grantee may choose to report against. And by doing that, if someone changed the activity type, then basically all their prior performance measures would become null and void, and the system wasn't able to do that. The system basically said if you reported on a performance measure, you could never change an activity type, because that would then have that correlation problematic. Now what DRGR is allowing you to do is that you may change your activity type, but please note, by doing so, any performance measures you put on that quote-unquote old activity type will be lost. Then literally they'll be lost in the system. And so what you'll need to do, and it will give you, God bless the system, when you hit this, if you try to change your activity type, there will be a little warning screen that pops up on you. It says, do you really want to do this? You're going to lose your performance measure data. So don't worry, you can't accidentally do it. It's gonna warn you and stop you, and you got to double check and say yes if you really want to do that. And so if you do want to do it, I want you guys to understand and acknowledge that you will be losing some performance measure data. Important for you to note, the old QPRs, based on what we're understanding, will still show the previous reported PMs, but new QPRs will only show the current data. So I've talked a little bit and kind of given you guys a little bit of a warning that this 7.10 is going on literally right now. And so HUD is still working through all the fact sheets for this, but I wanted to kind of point out to you some of the major functionality improvements. There's going to be improvements on the user admin, on action plans, on performance reports, and public reports. And Vinny, can you take us back to the One CBD Resource Exchange DRGR homepage? Great, thanks so much. So again, this is on the onecbd.info DRGR. It's the current graphic representation of the system. It will be changing next week. Again, if you go into Manage the Program, you'll be able to get to the DRGR homepage again. And the URL will not change. You'll notice right now we have a couple of the items up in the DRGR release 7.10. There's an overview, and there's even a more in-depth new user profile change request. So again, take a time, at the end of this week and next week to read through this overview to understand the different improvements that are happening. A lot is going to be in how action plans and QPRs are displayed, including your ability now to upload shape files and draw shapes in the map viewer, and public reports are going to be able to update to reflect all the active grants. So some good enhancements going on. I wouldn't say it's anything that's changing any of your day-to-day requirements, but I think some really interesting enhancement that could both support the work you're doing, improvements to how things are being displayed. I'll pause there, and Vinny, if you can go back to the slide deck. Ryan or Jim, anything else you wanted to add on 7.10 or even the 7.9 release that happened in March?
No, not really. Just that there was a lot of stuff in it. So I do encourage, as you did, I do encourage folks to take a look at everything. I think the fact sheets should be up for 7.10 probably by mid next week. They're pretty detailed. How many fact sheets do we have, Jim?
We've got, I think, including the two that are up there, I think there's 7 ready to go now.
All right.
And then we've got 3 more that we have to wait for other things to happen.
So there's plenty of reading material for all those who are super interested in DRGR functionality enhancement. Anyway, but no, nothing specific. We can get into all kinds of details, but that would take up too much time.
So just before we go to questions, I want to just always remind people about different resources. So again, on the onecbd.info, there's a place where you can ask a question. And my understanding from a lot of people, those are getting answered quite quickly. Some people are even getting calls to make sure we're understanding the intent of your question so we can best help you. So sometimes not only when you ask a question to the system, you might get a call from that. And again, you can go to, for right now, you'll notice on the resource library page of OneCBD info, you go there and you can find DRGR. Again, when the refresh happens and this kind of new graphic representation of the exchange happens next week, you'll be going to manage the program. Make sure you check out a listserv message that will be going out next week about that change so you're able to continue to navigate the resource exchange. And then, Minnie, if you can tell people how to ask a question, why don't we start doing some Q&As?
Sure. Thanks, Janine. So again, everyone, if you joined VoIP, which is listening to your computer, microphone, and speakers, you can insert your question into the questions box, which a lot of you have already done, so keep them coming if you have any questions. If you dialed in on the phone line, you can raise your hand, and if you have a question, we can unmute your line. You can ask your question audibly and get a response from the group. So I guess we will go ahead and go through the questions. The first question was, is there a link to view today's presentation? There is. The webinar resources will be uploaded to the OneCBD Resource Exchange under the Training and Events. So it might take a few days to get this recording up there, but everything will be posted there in due time. The next question is, for how many years should your project program income, or should you project program income if you are deriving monthly income from rental properties?
That's a good question. And Hud, please pick up here. I'm not sure if I've ever heard of a specific requirement around projecting program income, specifically here for deriving the monthly income from rental properties. Is there different notifications or notices as it relates to NSP on this item, though, Hunter?
Could you? I was just a little confused. Are they asking how do I project my monthly rental income?
No, this is more of a DRGR question. So there's not. Your answer is correct, Janine. There's not a rule in place as to how far out or what period of time you should project out for. The only thing that it should be is really reasonable, what makes sense, and the whole intent of being able to project your program income and then enter it into the action plan is to save you time and effort from having to go and increase your project and activity budgets anytime that you receive TI. So if you are comfortable doing that on a monthly basis and that's enough time saving for you, then you can do it monthly. If you want to do it quarterly, it's fine. If you want to do it yearly, whatever makes sense. But just talk to your HUD rep and make sure that they understand what your decision is so that they can understand that and they can anticipate and wrap their head around what the amount is that you're projecting TI for for that time period.
I was just going to add here for you, I think is that for whoever asked this question, that also for deriving monthly income from rental properties, make sure you go back to the program income definition here, especially for rental properties, of the net operating income, because often with folks, not all at all, so but sometimes and often with rental properties, there's not enough income that actually makes it turn into program income. So go back and review the definition of program income as it relates to rental properties and ensure you're looking at it for the nuance of net operating income so that you ensure you understand what is program income as it relates to rental properties.
And we also assume that with the rental properties that as you're trying to determine what your net operating income is, that you're going to have expenses throughout the year that they're not going to come on a steady basis. So in situations like that, go look at our guidance about that because we typically allow you to report the income yearly rather than on a monthly basis because you're going to have little to none typically.
So this is a great nuance here where under the DRGR it doesn't really give you specific rules and regulations on reporting here. And really, I think the goal here is to go back to then the definition of the program income, both kind of what is program income definition as it relates to rental properties, i.e. net operating income, and especially understand the intent behind classifying your expenses on a periodic basis because those expenses have the same kind of ebb and flow based on how your rental property income and expenses run. Okay. Let's go ahead and grab the next one, Vinny.
Thanks. So the next question is, we spent all of about $2,500 of our funds, and we spent all of our 25% set-aside funds. How and when will Treasury recapture that money? Can we close out before the money is recaptured?
Well, if you still have a use for those funds, you feel free to use them. But during the closeout process, when you fill out the forms, some of them will revolve around actually recapturing any funds left in your line of credit. And we assume that a number of grantees are going to end up in situations like that, with maybe a few $1,000s, a couple $100, even $20 or $30 that they'll have to recapture. So that's part of the closeout process.
Great.
Okay. Next question. In March, I received guidance from HUD staff regarding the 25% set-aside. They said that the rules for the set-aside apply to grant funds and program income. It applies to the total, which is program funds plus program income received on slides 11 and 12. Slide 11 or 12 said that the 25% set-aside requirement was based on the amount of the original grant amount. This information is conflicting with what HUD staff has provided.
It actually doesn't conflict. What's going on is you can close out your grant as long as you can demonstrate that you expended 25% of an amount equal to your initial grant, either out of program income or grant funds, towards the 25% set aside. You then have 3 years after you close out your grant to demonstrate that you've expended 25% of any program income on hand at the time of closeout towards meeting the 25% set aside. And then obviously in the future, any program income you earn after you close out, you also need to expend 25% towards the 25% set aside. So that's sort of kind of confusing, but I think the best way to look at it is it's kind of like a homework extension. And what we're saying is, you have extra time to meet that requirement for program income. You don't have to have it done at closeout, but that doesn't prevent you or stop any other homework you might add on, which is the 25% for any program income you earn after closeout. So it is accurate. You do need to meet the 25% for grant funds and for program income, just at different time frames. I don't know if I've made that confusing enough or not.
I think I'd recommend, Hunter, for anybody that does still feel a little confused by that, it is a confusing concept. So sometimes for me it helps when I have numbers. So don't hesitate to literally put in numbers to your rep or go to the AQ and literally say, this is my grant amount, this is what 25% equals, this is what I understand I have PI, my line of credit, and even use your real numbers to demonstrate that, just in case you really want to fully understand it and have it applied to your grant, if that still left you a little confused.
And actually, if you go into the CPD notice that's on the closeout notice for NSP, the sort of instructions with the forms, one of the forms in there has a little worksheet that helps you figure out what those numbers are. So you might even just want to play around with that worksheet, even though those won't be your actual numbers when you close out, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about.
Right. Great.
Okay. So the next question kind of deals with the same thing. To close out, we will need to spend out our line of credit. Because of the first in, first out rule, we've spent $3 million in program income, which leaves us a $3 million line of credit. Does this mean that we have to disperse the $3 million remaining line of credit before we are able to close out? And if so, how will we close out if we continue to receive program income?
Well, there is no, I mean, you don't have to expend those $3 million, but they all will be recaptured if you close out with $3 million in your line of credit. So we recommend either accelerating what you're doing or looking at things like a revolving loan fund. If you have questions about this and you want some guidance, I'd recommend possibly seeking some technical assistance, and you can have somebody look at your program and see if they can, one of our TA providers, see if they can come up with some ideas that might help you reach down and get that other funds sitting in your line of credit.
Great.
That was the easier question to answer. It wasn't some sort of odd theory.
The next question is kind of following up on all of this. I thought the 25% set aside only applies to program income if you receive $250,000 or more in a reporting period.
That is the case only after you close out your grant. So I didn't want to enter that extra layer of confusion when I was trying to explain the last into the last question a couple questions ago. But basically, that is correct. Program income earned after you close out, if you earn less than $250,000, then there is no 25% set aside. If you earn more than $250,000, then there is a 25% set aside requirement for all the program income you earn, not just anything above $250,000.
Great. Thanks, Hunter, for the clarification. So the next question is, we've completed all activity types and drawn down all funds, but the property are not 100% leased up. At what point should we submit closeout?
For a rental property, it's going to be, well, it's when you meet a national objective. So if you have if you're doing home ownership, then every property needs to have someone in the house and somebody living there before you can close out your grant. If you're doing some sort of rental, like a multifamily property, then we are actually looking at when you reach stabilized occupancy. And that will change based on the market and the nature of the project and things like that. But for a large multifamily property, that you're never going to get 100% occupancy, so we're not looking for that. We're looking for stabilized occupancy.
Okay, thanks. There's a few more closeout specific questions, so I'll run through those before I go to the DRGR questions that we have. With regards to program income accounts, what would be a suggestion or best practice to manage program income before closeout, then after closeout? Maybe create new activities to track and manage program income for each subrecipient?
I think I'd defer to Ryan and Jim on this one, but I don't see any problem with that unless they do.
I mean, it's a really broad question, which brings us back to the intent of what a program income account is meant to do, and it's meant to wall off funds for a particular subrecipient that is allowed to retain program income. Beyond that, and I'm not entirely understanding what's being asked here. What the question is, beyond that, there really isn't a use for program income accounts. It's not a way to wall off program income or manage it in any other way other than to just, based on a written agreement with the subrecipient, allow them to continue to use program income locally without that program income affecting your other subrecipients and your other draws. So I would be hesitant to say that you should use a program income account for any other purpose. And I say that because mainly I've heard of folks, trying to use program income accounts to set up, admin and block off funds for program income related to admin and in all kinds of unique ways, and that's just not the intent. And it really leads you down a path that could potentially cause issues with both HUD and the IG, as far as following your cash management rules, financial management.
And that's why I defer to Ryan on DRGR questions.
There you go.
And maybe on this one too, if this person is still not just with the program income accounts, but trying to make sure that they're thinking through how to have their program income look and feel so that they're telling their accurate story, as well as not kind of engaging in PI accounts in a potentially red flag way. You might want to ask for TA and or at least do an AAQ on this one, because I think the way the question is worded does have a little bit of red flag nature for me as well. I think Ryan's kind of pointing this out too, of how someone's using a PI account. So never hesitate, if you want to get more information on this, to ask some very specific questions, and people can look at your actual setups and help you there.
The same information basically applies to the revolving loan fund as well. The main difference between a PI account and a revolving loan fund account, the PI account is basically restricting the PI to a responsible organization. It can include a number of different types of activities. A revolving loan fund account is restricted to one activity, but can include many different responsible organizations. So it depends on the nature of what you're trying to do, which one you pick.
Great point.
Great, thanks. So another question. My understanding was that there was no date in which we needed to close out by. Is this still the case?
That is correct. There is no date to no date that you need to close out the grant.
Hunter will be waiting for you, though.
Yeah, and I will tell you that the big advantage to closing out your grant sooner is that you no longer have to submit quarterly performance reports. You go to an annual basis. And we will also, sort of the neat thing about that, those annual reports, is we'll tie them to your other reports that are required by HUD, the comp plan and annual, all that other stuff. So you won't have this random report due at some random point during the year.
That's not incentive enough. I don't know what else is. So.
Great, thanks. Okay, so next question is, could you go over again how to enter the affordability period data in the maintain address section?
Of course. Let me Let me take us back to that page, excuse me, while I run through. Okay. So this is where you get into that maintain address functionality. When you go to the QPR module, and literally when you hit on QPRs, this will be the first thing that comes up where it gives you an add edit QPR screen. And usually you go straight into, under a specific due date, go straight in and do a view or a download or an add as one of your action items. Don't go that far down into a specific QPR. Rather, if you see there's a maintain address link, that allows you to look at addresses across all QPRs. If you do that, excuse me, then this screen opens up. Here's a screenshot for you based on 7.7 release. And this then allows you to both search addresses. If you want to narrow your search to just look at a specific responsible organization, maybe you're doing some final reconciliation against developer X or subrecipient Y, then you're able to search for that responsible organization and see all the addresses you notated there. Or if you're a state, for example, and you're doing your final QPR and want to reconcile against a specific zip code or a specific city, perhaps, that you worked with, you can also search that way. If you don't hit any of those and just hit the words, hit search, and you don't actually put anything into the search box, that will give you all the information that you have in your QPRs, all your addresses, excuse me, that you have across all your QPRs. And that's the screen that will really pop up that allows you to add addresses, edit addresses, validate, meaning validate, kind of geocode those, or even delete selected addresses. So hopefully that can give you a little bit of overview. And here's an example of just try to give you one example of how to do that. If you select a couple of the addresses by using the checkbox on the left-hand side of your screen and then hit edit address, a little pop-up box comes up and it allows you to enter information in that changes your address to what you want it to be. You save that, and then that now will become the correct address in your system. Any other kind of bells and whistles to this application, Ryan or Jim, that you guys want to note?
Not really. Did you go over the ability to upload this information? Because you can do that. Other than that, it's pretty user-friendly. But I do think the uploads are going to come in handy, especially if you're doing a lot of reconciliation and you're trying to enter a lot of information for a large number of addresses. So, like you said, for the large grantees, that's definitely going to be helpful. But yeah, I think you pretty much hit on everything.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Janine. While you're on these slides, there's a couple other questions relating to it. Could you go, oh, excuse me. Under the edit address box, are you able to change the activity that the address is associated with?
That's a great question. I don't believe if you check edit address, you're able to do that. But I haven't tried this in a while, so let me just double check Ryan and Jim. I thought if you actually do, instead of doing the edit address screen, you actually should do move selected. And if you click that, aren't you able to move that address to a different activity, or am I misspeaking?
In the main address, when you click on it's cut off right now. I forget exactly what it is on the far end. But when you go into that, the detailed information for that address, you can change the activity that's associated with that address.
And you do that through edit address, or do you do that through another?
You should be able to do it through the edit address. I think it's called view maintain, if I'm not mistaken. But again, on the screen it's cut off right now. But I believe it's that link on the far right-hand side that allows you to get to that level of detail. Or enter data. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's it. Enter data. And then once you click on that, then you should be able to change, because that's going to give you all your post-closeout data. And one of the fields is what activity it's associated with, so you should be able to change the activity in there. Thought so.
Right here, this activity type for end use.
Yeah. I guess is the question, is it like what activity is it associated with? That, I was thinking activity type. I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you on the changing of an activity itself.
Yeah, we'll make sure. I think we have your name under the asker. We'll get back to you on that one. I somehow thought you do that through this move selected option. But, sorry, it's right here. We'll double check that, and if not, we'll see if there's another option here. I think the other option is that this is, again, you'd have to use a template, is the uploading batch uploads, that you could change the activity information there. That's one way. We'll double check how you literally can do that in DRGR through the maintain address screen, and hopefully find an answer for you and get back to you.
Great, thank you. Next question. The maintain addresses module has affordability period that is to be filled out. We have activities with code enforcement demolitions without acquisitions. How does HUD want grantees to handle demolitions in the maintain addresses module?
That's a great question. And we are talking about that internally, and I don't know the answer yet. So could you submit that through our AAQ, and we can respond to you. And we will be providing guidance to everyone about that in the future.
Okay, thank
you for the stumper.
The next question is, must addresses be valid per DRGR even if we know they are correct, or if they are correct? I assume validated, maybe?
Nope.
No.
It's the validation that we have in the system is a self-check. It's to aid you to kind of give you, you know, an idea of an opportunity to see if that's the address is actually geocoded, or to look on a map to make sure that it looks like it's geospatially in the right place. But you know, there are plenty of situations where an address that you know is a correct address doesn't come back as valid in DRGR. An easy example is like a new development, for example, that might not have been picked up with the data that we use for validation and geocoding purposes. So the answer is no.
Okay.
That someone has said that it would be beneficial for many folks to know how to move an address from one activity to another. Is it possible, once we get that information, Jim and Ryan, that we actually can maybe make an FAQ for that in the DRGR FAQ database?
Sure.
Okay. Why don't we do that for folks? We'll try to answer the specific people that noted that here today in the Q&A box, but we'll also try to ensure that that gets the answer gets up in the FAQ, so you guys can look for that FAQ as well in the future.
We're kind of like chuckling to each other internally because I know there's a simple answer to this, but for some reason
we're all blanking.
I really do think it's move selected, but again, it's been so long since I hit that button, I'm like can't remember exactly what that screen looks like. So
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Do not quote me on that.
Great. So the next question is, can a revision of vouchers be done on a template?
Oh, like an upload template? I've not seen that applicability. Am I wrong there, guys?
No, there's no revision upload yet.
So as of now, the answer is no.
Okay. Next question, are the data upload templates available to review from the webinar page or on the 1CBD website?
It's a great question. Why don't we actually pause for a second and let's go to the 1CBD website. Do you mind, Vinny, is that still available? Great.
Nope, and you can actually click all the links and take us to different places if you want.
Perfect, I appreciate that. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And I'm just going to go to what I find is probably release 7.9. Again, I'm on the 1CBD info/DRGR page. And I'm going to go to batch uploads right now just to show you guys. And it takes me to the home page for that PDF. I'm going to go ahead and hit that PDF. And hopefully, yep, great. It brings me to the fact sheet on this. And I just want to show you guys this fact sheet. It's it does a couple things for you. Again, I recommend you guys take a moment. But here it gives you a link to the templates that are available and where they can be found. It also gives you examples of what's part of the regular data uploads, both the upload type and then the field names that are associated with that. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit further, and you get even more. And then scrolling down a little bit further, these are then those power user data uploads. Remember, those are the grantee admin only. So what this allows you to do is if you go and want to see kind of what I call a dummy template, and to understand that, feel free to go here. And then if you also go into the system and want to see and get this information pulled directly for you from that. So it would literally grab, if you try to download the responsible organization template, you literally will get a lot of this information coming at you. And let's say you need to change one of the address lines, you can go in there and change it and then re-upload. So this is a great way to not just, you can see the template, but if you go into the system and pull that template from the system, you'll get all the data that's associated, and so you can make those changes literally on the sheet.
Great. Thanks.
You want to show them what the templates look like? I mean, they're just spreadsheets, basically, that have, so originally what happened was we had a link within DRGR that allowed you to download a file. It was basically a MicroStrategy report. But the problem is the MicroStrategy report had columns that you didn't need, and it didn't have columns that you needed. So what we did was we took the field names that are required for each upload, and we created a template for each upload type with only those columns that you need, and we've added the ones that you also would have had to add manually. And what you would do then is use the link that's in DRGR if you want to get the data that's currently in the system. You can copy and paste that into the template, but that template doesn't have to be manipulated at all, whereas that original report did have to be manipulated. So the templates, I think, are much easier to use now and more intuitive and less room for error. So.
And they're all available here on the...
Yeah, right here.
So how I got there, guys, just to recall, is I was back on the fact sheet batch uploads and got through here through the upload templates. I clicked on, I clicked on a PDF in here where it said go to this, and you'll see the templates, and now I'm at that. Another page on the Resource Exchange for all data upload templates. I'm scrolling down, I can see all of them. See someone else asked a question specifically about the address supporting information upload. I'm just going to click on that as our example. We now have an item we can, again, it's a CSV file. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. This is an example of all the different data fields that is part of the data, the address supporting information, i.e. those period of affordability, all this information. That's one way to get just a blank template. Again, if you're in DRGR and want to, you can get it where you're able to download all the information in the system, and by going in and grabbing that template from there. So two ways you can get at templates. One, a blank template, and you go to the Resource Exchange. Another is going through DRGR, and you can actually get a template that would have all of your data filled in, and then you can go ahead and change any of it that you may need. Hope that is helpful.
Great. Thanks, Janine. So kind of on that same line, is there a template to upload the support information for properties?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I just showed. Is I went again, found the data uploads, and went ahead and clicked on this address supporting information, and that's where you get that information from. That's the template you can use.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes care of the questions we have in the queue right now. I'll see if anybody who dialed in on the phone have any questions. And again, if you dialed in on the phone line, you can raise your hand and we'll ask you, or you can ask your question. We'll unmute your line. And I'm not seeing anybody.
We'll take a moment. I'm just going to, if you can take us back to the slide deck. Great, thank you. I was just going to show people, excuse me, going too fastly through this. Is an example of someone that for the vouchers did actually go and do an upload voucher and wanted to show you guys how to also, this is where you can download your template for that voucher if you'd like, and also we go through the steps of how to upload the voucher, or excuse me, upload your template voucher as well. So kind of two different ways to, that this slide shows you how to do it. This is literally how you're going to upload it. You're going to click on the download template screen. You're going to go ahead and select the grant and use the arrows. So you move it, you move which grant you're going to be uploading the voucher against. Important. Export it again as the CSV file. And lastly, you're going to use your exported template to upload any additional information. Any additional questions coming in, Vinny?
I don't see any additional ones at this time.
Hopefully everything's clear as mud. So just to repeat for a couple folks here, some keys here. Really trying today to debunk the idea of a perfect QPR, and let's kind of wash that out of our heads. Let's get complete and accurate is really what the goal is. Complete meaning that you have narrative, performance, and financial data in there, that you have told your story of what has happened in your NSP program. And accurate means you really reconciled all of your performance and your performance and your financial data against your internal books, either your internal accounting systems, your data that you receive from developers and subs with regards to the user information. You have your period of affordabilities where those are accurate in there, that you have clearly thought through and understand what is line of credit and what is program income. You've accurately walled off program income where necessary by developing a program income account. So that's what we're talking about, accurate information for this final QPR. And really stop and think through that. Any questions or concerns, as always, as we've noted before, there's a couple places where you guys can get some TA, ask a question, talk to your rep. I know right now there were two outstanding questions for us. One is how to move an address from one activity to another. We will get back to those people that noted in the question and answer they'd like that information, and we'll also ensure when we get that answer to go to the FAQ, and we apologize that all of us are going blank on that one right now. And then the other one is around the more policy-oriented question that came up around demolitions. And so Hunter had mentioned that they are still thinking that question through, and hopefully we'll have some answers in the near future. I think lastly I'm seeing one question about where would they go if any particular questions about problems using the upload templates. Ryan and Jim, I assume those questions should still go through the Ask a Question desk within One CPD Resource Exchange. And if people are having additional questions, usually those will get forwarded on to Jim and Ryan if there are kind of any additional glitches or anything like that.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to take everyone to the final, oops, excuse me. Just here to remind people, again, you go to onecpd.info, ask a question, and you can go ahead and you're going to be an organization and you're going to be wanting to ask a question about a HUD program or a policy or reporting system question. Go in there, make sure you fill out it based on DRGR. and that will get routed to the DRGR people, and they'll be able to answer your questions that way. Any parting words, Hunter or Ryan or Jim?
I don't either. Just,
nope.
You know, we will obviously, I think from the amount of questions we got that are sort of more policy-based on closeout, we'll definitely be doing some more sort of trainings and webinars and things on the closeout process. I do want to say that we are having 2 webinars next week. On Tuesday, we're going to have a land bank webinar, which is going to have a sort of a roundtable with some folks that are, you know, have running some land banks in both Ohio and in Michigan, and sort of talk about the whole land bank process. And then on Thursday, we're just going to have an open forum Q&A. So looking out for notices on those 2 webinars.
And if you can let people know how to take the survey video, and we'll go ahead and wrap up. Sure.
So on the last slide, there's a link to our survey. We appreciate your feedback. It's really important to us, and HUD definitely does take into account every feedback request that we receive. And tomorrow you'll receive a thank you for joining email, and there'll be a live link within that email, so you can just click on that and then do the survey that way. So thank you all again for joining today, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.